Good morning. I'm Pat Sullivan from Seacoast Real Estate. We're sponsoring Winthrop's Nicest Garden Contest. We're here this morning with Paul and Linda Roy at 46 Nahant Avenue. Paul's one of my favorite gardeners. He's one of the principals at Elliott, Whittier, Hardy, and Roy. You've probably seen their garden at the center. And today, Paul and Linda are going to show us around their beautiful garden here on Nahant Avenue. With us here are Paul, Linda Roy, Rosie Forcillo, Dan Ashton, Jeannie DeAngelis, and Terry Vasquez. So, Paul, why don't you show us around your garden?
Okay. Thanks, Pat. Welcome, WCAT. The walkway, and this year we planted gazania, and gazania is an annual here, and it's a perennial down south. So hopefully we'll have daisy-like flowers in a few weeks. These are gazania all up and down the walkway, and as you can see, interspersed here is the alyssum, and the alyssum seeded itself from last year. This is a holly bush here. And now I can take you over to the perennial garden. This is the perennial garden, Pat. And
isn't it beautiful?
Thank
All
you.
the colors are gorgeous.
Thank you. And this has evolved over the past 10 years or so. And they're a collection of both perennials, and then we always add the annuals every year for color. Here is the dianthus, which had its peak last week. And dianthus is also a baby carnation. And you can see dianthus in the background also there.
Well, the deep pink is also dianthus?
The deep pink and the scarlet red and the pink back there. Here we have a still bee, and that comes up every year also. And let me just point out the coreopsis. The coreopsis, we have two types of coreopsis. We have the standard coreopsis, and I have no idea what the standard name is other than
Perfectly all right. We'll go
coreopsis.
with
And
English name, which we're all familiar.
okay, and the smaller plant is the moonbeam, which is a lime-colored coreopsis flower, and that should be out in about another week.
It looks as if the buds are just about ready to come out. On
They are. And if you come back, you can see them in a week.
Okay. I'll be driving by.
All right, and the spear-type flowers here are purple liatris, and the bees like those plants. And again, they should be out in approximately a week. In the background, along the back of the, I'll just point out here, this plant is called the pearl, and it's a double baby's breath that spreads itself around. So if anyone would like a plant, be my guest. And in the background, as the backdrop of the garden, is the purple coneflower.
So when will they be blossoming?
I would say the coneflower would be blossoming in 2 weeks. And we've had those for many, many years.
So you really have an ongoing array here. You had
Mhm.
the dianthus early.
Yep.
Now the coreopsis is coming out with the astilbe, and then the cornflower will be.
Yep. And actually, we start off with bulbs, tulip bulbs. So it changes all year right up through the fall.
It's just beautiful, Paul.
Thank you.
Shall we go around to the back and
Sure.
see your rear garden as well?
This is the backyard, Pat, as you know, and the backyard has a long story because we've actually replaced everything in the backyard from the time we moved here 22 years ago, 23 years ago, 24 years ago, long time ago. And the backyard was very, very low, and it flooded, and we actually dug a trench in the back of the yard, covered it with stones and plastic, and we created drainage. So the drainage goes out front, and on top of that, of course, we built our lawn and our gardens, and this also has evolved over the years. And
Well, that's
I'm
good
gonna
for
show
people
you-
to know that
yeah.
they could do that,
Yeah.
so that if someone thinks that they have a yard that isn't plantable, Obviously, if they spend some time and do the right thing, you can make a beautiful garden.
It takes a dream, and starting with some books and
Mhm.
studying and reading. And anyway, I'm just going to point out some of my favorites. And in the corner here, other than Pat, of course, is the lace leaf maple. It's a Japanese lace leaf maple that I just love, and we've had that for a number of years. And
So delicate.
it's
isn't it
such a
beautiful?
pretty tree, and it's so delicate, and even the branches during wintertime are pretty. It's a nice tree, and our cat sleeps under there during hot days. And the back fence, those are purple asters that are perennials, and we trim those back, and I'll trim those back again in a week or two. And by September and October, that area is covered with purple. And of course, in front I have the alyssum. So, and in this corner here on the right of the lace leaf maple, we have some annuals. Zinnia, they're a coral-colored zinnia. And of course, you can see the alyssum all through the yard. And a lot of the alyssum is reseeded from last year. It's got to be cleaned up, and I really pull out a lot of alyssum during the spring. But I like to leave as much alyssum in there as possible. And I'll also buy alyssum plants to supplement. Anyway, in this corner is our holly tree, which is the male, and it's called Blue Stallion. And we've had this tree for a number of years, and it started off as a scrawny-looking twig, around 5 years ago. And look at it now; it's been trimmed back this year already. And behind the plum tree, this is a ornamental plum tree, by the way, that is 7 years old. And behind the plum tree is a lily plant, a very large plant, as you can see. And I would say that would be open in about 2 weeks. And if you go around to the left of the plum tree, we have the female holly.
Do you have to have both kinds of holly for them to blossom?
Yes, you do. You have to have a male and a female, and I believe that's called Blue Princess. That shrub I don't prune until Christmas time, and that is covered with red berries at Christmas time, and we can have as many holly branches as we like.
It's nice for decorating.
It is nice for decorating.
And what's next here?
Along the back fence here is another perennial that has its blooming time in May, and it's called a golden alyssum. And it's a beautiful plant. The only thing is that you get flowers only 1 month a year, but it's worth it, believe me. It's a gorgeous plant, and they contrast with the lilacs, which is a very, very beautiful thing in the spring. And at the same time, we have the tulips are out at the same time. So I'm going to swing you down to the left here, and again we have our annuals that go along the walkway, and they're called Gazania, again Gazania. I've never grown them before, and again here they're an annual, and down south they're a perennial. And this particular plant is a daisy-like plant, and within a month or so this area should be covered with daisy flowers.
Now, are these the orange and yellow flowers that we see coming out here?
Mm-hmm. And again, this is bordered by seeded alyssum, reseeded alyssum, I should say. And what I do in the spring is I go down the bed and I just clear out the center of the bed of alyssum. That's how much alyssum is in there. So
It must be beautiful when you have the white border and the colorful interior.
it is pretty. It's really nice.
What do you have in your barrel here, Paul?
Barrel, we have Nicotiana. That's the white plant. And that's a very aromatic plant. And the little purple flowers, I would have to look for a tag to tell you because I don't remember.
Is that lobelia?
That is lobelia. Thanks, Pat. Excellent.
Very pretty.
Thanks. As we go down the yard, I want to point out the scalloped edge of the yard, the scalloped edge on the lawn, and the way this was laid out. This was installed as sod, and I did this a very, very long time ago. Excuse me. And after I had laid out my sod, I took a long ball of twine, and I dropped the twine along the sod as I went along, and I created the scallop. And after the twine was in place as a scallop, I get down on my hands and knees with a utility knife, and I carved out along the string.
You are a dedicated gardener, Paul. It's not as noticeable here where you
No.
have the alyssum, but down where the area
right.
is mulched, we can
Yeah.
really get the effect.
And a few years ago, I lined this in brick. You can see some brick that separates the lawn from the flowers.
So does that help to keep the lawn from
Mhm.
growing in further?
It does. It also looks pretty.
It does.
Yeah.
Looks beautiful. Now, what do you have planted back here?
This garden here starts off in the early spring as a tulip garden. And as time goes on, in late May, we convert it to an annual garden. And this is interspersed with petunias up front and dianthus in the back. This is a color of dianthus that's called, I believe it's called strawberry parfait or parfait. And I'm really looking forward to having that. I'll fill in a couple of weeks. That'll be awfully pretty.
Now, is this later than the dianthus you had in the front?
This is later. Now, I'm not sure of this, but I'm quite certain this particular dianthus is an annual,
Oh.
where the dianthus in front is a perennial.
Oh, I see.
And the only way, and I'm not sure if this is the official way to tell the difference, this green is not as, it's a greener green than
I
the
see
green
that.
out front,
It's more vibrant than the green
Right.
in the front.
and the green in the front is a lot more grayer
Yes.
green. So, and as we swing around, you could see my Japanese black pine that I've had for a lot of years, and it's been moved around, I think about 2 places in the yard over time. Of course, that's it forever right there. It's never going to be moved again. And in front of the pine are 2 shrubs, and these are the mounds that you see that are low. On the right side is a barberry bush.
It's pretty with the red and green leaves.
That'll turn red. That'll be absolutely brilliant red. And on the left of that is a Mugo pine, which is this mound here on the left of the sundial.
That stays as a low shrub?
Well, it really, early spring, it grows the canes. And the trick of this is to shape it every year. And what I do is I allow the canes to grow, and then I'll just trim it back. And I'm not trying to have a perfect mound. I'm trying to have something a little more interesting.
It is very
if you could see the barberry, I have a
It's a beautiful
rock there, and so you just add interest to the plant. And on the back fence in the right corner is a forsythia bush, and I think everyone knows what that is in terms of color. And as you come around the left, we have potentilla, which is the yellow flowering shrub with the gray-green needle-like leaves, I guess. And then as you come all the way around, you see 3 lilac bushes. And we're opening a space between the 2 lilac bushes this summer to add some more flowers. We had a 4th lilac bush in there, but we're in the process of pulling that out. And then as you come around to the left, this is where Linda and I spend a lot of time on Sunday mornings and early evenings.
Enjoying the
Coffee.
fruits of your labor.
And it's very peaceful back here, and I would enjoy you all to sit down and join us.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun, and it's very peaceful. It's very peaceful.
It's a beautiful garden, Paul.
Thank you.
You've done a lovely job in both the front and rear.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for
Okay.
inviting us. We appreciate it.
Okay, my pleasure.
Showing the garden to everyone.
Thank you.
You donating it to WCBI?
You'd love it.
I'm in favor.
Thank you, Linda.
Hi, I'm Dan Ashton with the Seacoast Real Estate Group, and we're here this morning with Carolyn Plath, 64 Temple Ave. Carolyn is going to show us her garden. She's entered Winthrop's Nicest Gardens contest, and she's going to take us around. Okay.
Well, Dan, first let me explain. This garden was planted sort of the view from up the three-decker,
Okay.
because my desk is up there and I like to look out the window. And when I arrived here 7 years ago, this place was just rubbish. It hadn't been touched for 20 years. So it was really kind of an adventure to clear and then to find that there were some things that were salvageable in the yard.
Okay.
Also, I might note that I lived in Arizona 26 years, and so this was a treat to come to New England with a seasonal change and all these wonderful things to be able to plant. So I started in gradually. The first year, all I did was clear the trash and threw in a few nasturtium seeds, I think. But now, this foundation thing was actually here. I don't know if you can get it. Can you get a shot of it all right? Anyway, I think this was a foundation. It was a foundation of some sort, and so I sort of used that to start. And the first year I planted right in here, and then I extended this bed, cut back this cedar that was overpowering everything, and started in. I have to admit that for the most part, I plant for later summer and fall. And my daughter's being married in October, so I was keeping that in mind and what I did this year. But it's been a matter of experimenting for me since I lived in the desert so long, to be able to find out what grows and what doesn't here. And I've learned some the hard way. But anyway, so I put in the lilies, and I stick in pansies. Those I don't start from seed. I buy those. And geraniums are my favorites. And they're very good cutting flower, too. And then roses. I have been experimenting. That's a New English type rose that is very hardy, and they say it's very good for this climate, the one over here. And the nasturtiums, I just throw those in by seed. They like poor soil. They'll even grow in Arizona. Then over in this bed is, I usually have snapdragons. I saw them and I hadn't seen them for years, and I was all excited the first year I planted those. And I found out that they will bloom. They're one of the last, they're still in bloom. In the November I've had them. But they, as you see, most of them are just beginning. They haven't even started to open yet. And also this year I threw in some dianthus, which is new for me. And I kind of like that. The strawberries kind of wander around, and they're wonderfully delicious. If you want to eat some, that's fine. Then my herb garden I've always had back in there. I got really carried away the first year and did all sorts of exotic things, which I ended up not using or cooking with. So I like thyme and parsley, dill, and chive. And so I've limited myself to that. The tall, spiky things in the center are liatris. And they're good for in a garden, a veggie garden or anything, because the spikes just grow straight up, and they have a purple bloom on them. And I grow those and dry them and use them in the fall, too. So that, whatever I have going, I put in there. So as you can see, some of it is just beginning to come up. Zinnias are another one of my favorite. They're summer flowers, and I put those in by seed after the tulip bulbs I pull in the spring. I've been using that bed now for that. And as you can see, the seedlings are just coming up. And in fact, I've thinned some yesterday, and I need to thin more as they get bigger. I like to plant California giants, and I also have used a variety of other lengths for cutting arrangements. And then the bachelor buttons, because I like the touch of blue with the bright colors in the summer. And there's some dianthus scattered in there, and some daisies, and some mini dahlias. Now, in the veggie garden at the very back, well, the vegetable garden looks very bad right now, but I had put in dill seed in between that, and I also put in marigold seeds. I don't use any pesticides. I use the marigold as the control for pests and things around the vegetables, but I always have tomatoes and zucchini, and I don't know about this soil, but I've had zucchini the last few years that have almost been obscene. Everybody in the neighborhood has had to have, well, Dan, you've had some
of our obscene zucchini.
Yeah, right. Then the foliage that's still coming up, I put those tubers in the spring, kind of late. But those are plate dahlias, and they do grow the size of plates eventually.
Can we walk over there?
Yeah, but they'll be coming up. They'll be starting to bloom in August and go well into the fall. They're the tall, spiky things. And then when they're finished blooming in the fall, I just dig up the tubers and store them over winter. And that part is not mine. The neighbors got a little inspired, and 2 years ago did plant, cleared it out and planted it. But the first project I did when I came was the slope, where our lovely committee is standing. Yeah, okay.
Can we go this way?
Well, can you pick your way? I cleared all this, and every year I clear a little farther in. Now, this is one of the mistakes I learned. First year, I planted roses over there, those 2 rose bushes you can see, and I planted them in the spring, whereas you can see now it's in sun. However, as the summer progresses, those are almost always in shade, and roses love sun. So they've struggled along, but they've certainly not done much over the years. Again, I always stick in seeds of nasturtiums, and those are the zinnias that I started thinning yesterday, because the seeds, once they come up, then you can transplant them into other areas of your garden. I had 2 years ago, and it was really neat, a friend gave me from the Fine Arts Museum a big packet of the Monet garden, and there were all these different seeds, and they came on a little palette with different colors, and you could plan a color scheme, and so I sort of floated along, and I had no idea what was in it. It was a mess the first year because, of course, the weeds, I couldn't tell what was weed and what was supposed to be a perennial or whatever. But anyway, last year they were really beautiful, and I think those dianthus are left from those seeds. And there's some other strange things in there that have bloomed earlier in the spring, and obviously they were in that, and they finally had established themselves. And then I have marigolds. I planted also mainly looking toward fall, a lot of it, because my daughter's going to be married in October. Now down here, underneath the tree, because they do love shade, are begonias. And every year I start the tubers in the house in a flat, and then when they have 3 big leaves, then I set them out in the garden after the frost is gone. They aren't blooming yet, but they will be again summer and fall. They'll be all different colors. This garden was mainly planted because this is a triple-decker, and it's just an apartment that I rent. And so I wanted to look from my sun porch and from my desk in my den out on something other than weeds. And so it was planted with viewing from up top as much as really for down below.
Well, thank you very much for the tour. I think we've all seen a lot of color and had a good time. And we appreciate you taking us around your garden. Thanks very much, Carolyn.
Thank you, Dan.
Good morning. I'm Dan Ashton with the Seacoast Real Estate Group, and we're here this morning with Mrs. Ogus on 48 Temple Avenue, and she's going to give us a little tour of her garden. She's one of the contestants in our Winthrop's Nicest Gardens contest. Would you like to point out a few items of interest here, Mrs. Ogus, in your garden for us?
Yes. First of all, these two trees are cypress. And they're a beautiful green color, especially in the sun. And this is a red maple over here. Wait a minute.
He's here coming up.
Yeah, that's a daylily. Beautiful yellow, and it's a large plant.
What color are they going to be when they bloom?
Yellow.
Yellow.
Yeah, very interesting. And in back is a Shasta daisy and coreopsis. And these have gone by. And this is a very striking plant. This is yucca. You usually see it in solid green, but there is a striped variety, and it's very handsome. It's this color during the whole winter.
It's nice to have something that keeps its color, huh?
That's right. Now we can walk.
Okay, we wondered if you could talk about how you planned this garden.
Yeah, in the very beginning, this was an empty, well, we cleared the lot. And of course, that makes it a whole lot easier to garden. We drew up a plan, and this goes back 45 years, and we had a budget. And I used to save $10 a week for the year, and then I'd splurge with the $500. It took 10 years to complete the garden, but it's been a delight.
And it just keeps giving you pleasure year after year. It sort of evolves, doesn't it?
Oh yes,
So this was an empty lot when you started out.
right. And we have a very fine collection of azaleas and rhododendron,
Uh-huh.
and of course we have the beautiful birch tree and the maple tree on this side. And up here we have some more material. This is the ground cover. This is sedum.
Sedum. This,
S-E-D-U-M.
this yellow material here, yellow blooms.
I'll let you go first.
Okay. Can you tell us about this pink bush here with the beautiful flowers?
Yes, it's a double azalea, and when in bloom, it's a deep pink and gorgeous. This tree next to it is Atlanta cedar.
Cedar. What an unusual plant.
Did you train it to grow down like this, Mrs. Ogus?
We've had it quite a while. They had started it, and then we finished it. But actually, when Mr. Delory comes next week, he's going to take this branch out. This garden is all perennials. And there are tomatoes in the back. The interesting part about this, for me, is the fact that I grew all these plants from seed except the strawberries. That's a very unusual strawberry because it has a pink flower. My daughter sent it from California. Yeah. And all you can see now in the background is our hemlock hedge. And we have enjoyed all these years. Okay. Now, this Japanese yew was selected very carefully because we already knew the design that we wanted. So when we picked the shrub, we had to make sure that there were 5 branches that we could use. And that's why it's shaped this way. Of course, it looks much different after it's pruned.
I see.
The gardener will be back next week, and he'll finish up
Now, how old is that?
35 years.
35 years.
Yeah. I wanted you to see a couple of plants now.
plant here?
Yeah. This plant here has a pink flower in June and red berries all winter long. And it's a Catoni aster.
Tony Asta.
Yeah. Actually, it's spelled like cotton Easter.
I see. So you have nice color in the wintertime when everything else is sort of gray and
Right.
brown.
We have a few things with berries.
Can you tell us about this evergreen here?
Yeah. This is a Pfitzer. Pfitzer.
Pfitzer.
And it's been trained in the Oriental manner.
Yeah.
The plant in back is Coreopsis. And
That's the yellow?
yeah,
Mhm.
there's some in back. But the wind blew some of the seeds over. And
So they seeded themselves?
this seeded itself.
My goodness, what a gift, huh?
Yeah.
What's the purple flower?
Now, this one is a variety of geranium,
No kidding.
but not the geranium that we know.
Hmm.
And it's very interesting because this whole thing had about 200 flowers on it. It was absolutely gorgeous.
My goodness.
Yeah. My daughter sent it to me.
It's still
And
beautiful.
that's a magnolia shrub in back.
Magnolia?
Where I grow some of my seeds. This happens to be a good spot because the wind is very helpful.
And you get a lot of sunshine there too, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah. So this is your nursery for things that,
That,
you
but-
then transplant somewhere else?
that's right.
I see.
But it was inadequate. I couldn't grow too many things because I didn't want to disturb the strip.
Uh-huh. Sure.
That's why we set up that cutting garden over there.
Uh-huh. Well, we're going to thanks so much for having us.
Not at all. It was
And
nice.
it's really a pleasure to take a look at your garden and look at all the interesting things you've done over the last 40 years or so.
Yeah, right.
And we really appreciate it.
Good.
So
Hi, I'm Rose from Seacoast Real Estate. With me is Greg and Lottie Streeter. Would you like to show us some of your gardens?
Yeah, I guess that's what you're here for, right?
That's right.
Well, we had a lot of problems with sun. We don't have very much of it because the huge tree here, which we've disputed cutting down, but my wife doesn't feel like we have the right to because it's so old. And so as a result, we've had to. The challenge has been trying to grow flowers and have a lot of shade. So fortunately, we've over the years come up with different flowers that have really worked well for us, and we have a lot of impatiens, obviously. The really bright blue stuff is called lobelia, and then we do have a lot of fuchsia, hanging fuchsia, which do real well. A lot of these things like all shade and no sun at all. We were always looking at different colors and things like that, and as the years go by, we sort of get more of an idea of what works and how to utilize our space to the best of our advantage and things of that sort. So,
a lot of different
yeah, they come out with a lot of different, yeah. That when we first got the house, it had no gardens at all, other than some, over here, these were those little white bells. I'm really bad with names. You'll have to excuse me.
Lily of the Valley, honey?
Lily of the Valley. And since we've been fertilizing and things, they've really taken off. Initially, we had started with this garden over here, and I've gotten a lot of plants, mostly from other people. I don't always go and pay money for them, but I do. But those a lot of times I'm sort of sentimental about them. I know who gave me them, and I sort of move them around, and people give me pieces of things. A lot of times when I'm working, I'll make mention of their garden. They'll share stuff with me, which is real nice. And
Brings home a lot of baggies.
a lot of wet newspapers with plants in them. But and then I'm famous for like going to Grossman's or Kmart. I can't drive by without stopping in and looking to see what's on sale or something like that. And so a lot of the things that we've had, they just sort of they grow or they die, and next year we'll fill the space. If there's a little bit of extra room, I'll be greedy and fill it up. So sometimes they're a little overcrowded, but in the spring it almost looks like there's extra room there, and you want to fill it all up. Oh wow, there's a space, so I put some in, but then when everything else matures, then there's no room left. So if you notice, they'll be kind of crowded.
That's good. It makes it more beautiful.
Well, it's just, I don't know, it's a lot of, work, but I really enjoy it. It's sort of like my hobby. And she calls herself a garden widow.
You want to walk us up and show us?
I don't know, I would probably be better off if you went over that way, so that you walked to the yard. But there's a really lot of shade grasses available, and this is just done with seeds. And every year we throw a bunch more seeds in and water a lot and try to get it to grow. And with the tree, it also sucks up a lot of the nutrients that grass would need to grow, so it's kind of challenging. We had chain link fence initially. We put this stuff up we really like going down the Cape, and since we've had our babies, we can't always get away as much as we like to, so we want to try to make our house look like we live there. But we've done this, this garden here is all shade garden. There's actually no sun at all in this whole thing. And I really like textures, and I like vines and ferns a lot, so most of the things here are from other people too. When we first moved here, there's a great old guy who lives across the street. He's since not here any longer, but he used to give me plants all the time. So if you want to walk through here, you can see better what's going on here. What's that? Yeah, I did a job for a guy, and he was pulling this out of his garage, out of his driveway, and there's 700 bricks here. And every spring I try to do a project, and there's 700 bricks. So this used to be all dirt, and nothing would grow here. So we put most of this dirt in here and stuff like that. But all in here, I took sort of the dirt that was in here and built up the sides, which was good as far as, and then I mixed peat moss and fertilized it up. So it's worked pretty well. I need to cut more of this tree off up here so that some of this stuff will grow better, because the shade really takes off. But these are foxglove, which are my wife's favorite flower, and I'm always so envious when I go by other people's gardens, especially down the Cape. They're like this tall and like this wide. Around here it's pretty windy, and I also don't have enough sun to probably do them justice, but we try. But you can see how crowded everything is. I keep putting things in, and stuff dies and grows, and sometimes things it depends on the winter, I think, how things grow. Sometimes they take off more than others. But I might buy some, but I also will get them from other people. And I had about 2 weeks ago, they were in perfect condition. I cut them all off on the top, and I found by cutting them a lot of times they'll grow, I'll get flowers again in the summer. They're not always, they're not supposed to do that as a rule, but by cutting them all down and not letting them go to seed so much, sometimes I'll get a second flowering out of them, which is kind of nice. It's funny, I let a lot of things just grow. I don't know, sometimes something just starts growing, and I'll give it a shot and wait and see if it gives me any flowers or if it looks nice, and then I won't rip it out right away. So a lot of stuff that's in here is dissimilar. That, I don't know, I'm really bad. I don't know the names of anything. I see a picture of something, or I see it for sale, or it looks like it's going to die and it's for $1 or $1 or something, and I'll buy it and try to rescue it. When I was a kid, I used to work at Tewksbury's greenhouse, and that's sort of how I got my start. I used to help drive and stuff like that for them. But I'm kind of notorious for going to Kmart when they have all this stuff on sale at the end of the year. At the end of the spring is a good time to go there, because you can get some really good deals. And we have most of these are perennials. The things with the flowers on them would be annuals. Lilies do well in shade too, which is kind of surprising. Always says they like some sun, but they do good in shade. That would be these right here. These are those stargazer. A lot of times people have them in their wedding bouquets, and they're kind of smelly. They smell like medicine. But there again, she really likes them, so I try to pick those up when I get them on sale or whatever. But there again, impatiens really do well in the shade, so that's what we have. Really a lot of impatiens, and I'm always impatient for how things go. So over there I've got a lot of begonias that I do. A lot of those are all tuberous begonias, and they're kind of tricky in the fall. I'm sort of like burnt out on gardening a little bit, and I don't always take as good a care as things I should, so sometimes I end up not putting my bulbs away properly, and then they don't always make it, so I have to buy new ones in the spring. But I usually start them myself. You get them, they look like I don't know, little patties or something, like a little hamburger, and you put them in the peat moss and they start coming up, and they do real well. They like shade too. So yeah, it works. I always have great ideas, but I don't always have time to do it. But unfortunately, I spend about an hour every morning out here, so that's what's going on. So.
Another area?
Yeah, the backyard. I mean, it have a little house there for the kids. They like to play, and Lottie actually comes out and has tea parties with the kids and sits in there. And there's a couple little chairs and tables, and there's but they have fun out there. There again, all shade. I like the trees. They give you a lot of privacy, but there again, they don't give you a really good thick lawn. Initially, I put that turf down for grass, and it didn't really do that well. So each year, I reseed and sort of scrape it up a little bit and fertilize. And you'll notice there's really a lot of weeds here. And we don't initially, before we had children, I used to do the weed and feed, which would kill all the stuff you didn't want to grow. And now with the babies, it's really detrimental to their health. So I don't put that down any longer. And so there's tons of weeds in here. So it's not like a really great lawn, but it works. Kids can play a lot on it. It doesn't hurt much. So, but I got this stuff. My parents bought a piece of property, and I scooped some of this out of the backyard, and it took off real good. That's that. You see it in the fall a lot on people hanging on their doors. It has those little red berries on it. Yeah, bittersweet. And so it's really taken off nicely here, and I'm not really fond of fencing, but there again, I like privacy, so I did this thing here, and it worked pretty good. It's camouflage. Yeah, that's it. I'm trying to get it to go back that way, so hopefully it will as it takes off. But there again, all around in the back here is just mostly hosta. That's what these big leaves are, and I've gotten a lot of those from different people that I knew and things like that. Over in the tall ones, about a week ago, it would have been great if you could have got a shot of that. Those were peonies, and there again, an old friend of mine, a real nice old lady. She moved back to Europe since, but she gave me all of those, and when they come up, it's nice. I remember who gave them to me, and I sort of have fond memories of the person and stuff like that. So there again, a lot of like the old pieces of the chairs and stuff like that. People gave them to me and things like that. So it's. And because of Dan Ashton, I have all that privet hedge over there. I went to Kmart, and it was 25 cents for 25 plants. So I'm a sucker for a bargain. So I bought these like little. They were only in little containers. They had a little wire on them. They were about that big, and I bought I think all they had. They only had like 4 of them or something. So that's what all of those trees over there along the fence had. They came up from just these little twigs. I never thought that they'd take off, but Dan had planted it before, and he told me that it worked. So you can sort of see all along that fence how that's grown. I got a lot of plants from my grandmother's backyard too. When we sold her house, I got some irises and things like that. Over there I have a vine. I can't think of the name of it, with the purple flowers. Anybody? Clematis, right? So I have one of those that was in my grandmother's yard, and it never really took off. It was only like that big, but I had read that the secret to having a successful clematis is to have the roots be very shaded and have good sunshine on the top. So I decided to plant it real close to the side of the house, which would then give me the dampness and moisture from like the stone foundation and the sunshine from the top. So it works. So yeah, and it's taken off pretty good. Maybe you can take a picture of just that. But yeah. My garden's over there. I've been really busy, and I haven't spent as much time on weeding and things like that as I'd like to, so I'm a little bit kind of late. Plus, I'm still waiting for those sales at Kmart to really unload them. Yeah, no, well, they do have really good deals. They sell stuff for 50 cents and $1, that would have cost $10. I got some of the plants out front. They were supposed to be $10 each. I got them for $1 a piece because someone forgot to water them. They wilted so bad they looked like they were going to die. So I scoped them and then I came home, watered them, and the next day they looked beautiful, just like they were worth $10. So yeah. But this is the clematis, and it's just sort of I don't know. I always sort of wanted to grow what doesn't grow for me. It's a challenge. You know? Yeah, and it's taken off. There's a neat cement planter that I brought back from Mexico. I carried it on the airplane in the travel compartment on the top, but I had to have something from there, you know. They had these big statues for like $10. I wanted one so bad, but
Couldn't carry it.
Nah, I couldn't imagine. I know I would look goofy enough just carrying this. So.
And that fits well in your garden. It looks beautiful there.
Yeah, it's like a bird feeder. It's a shell, and it has. But last year, when this wasn't doing as bountiful, I've been waiting for it to grow for so long. I wouldn't snip any of it back. So.
Very pretty.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there. So on the side over here, I can walk you over there, and you can see the other arbor. But when we first bought the house, this was the first garden we decided to do. This was all buried underneath dirt, and I was working out here doing something, and I realized that there was this cobblestone pathway. So we decided, I exposed it, dug all the weeds off of it, and then decided that we'd use this little corner as a spot to put a garden. And so we go to the store and bought $60 worth of flats and came back all excited and went to put them in, and there was totally rocks in there. So we got a screen and we sifted all the rocks out, and we got 3 of those big brown buckets that you put the trash out filled with stones.
Lots of work.
And then we worked that up, and so there's a lot of perennials and stuff in there too. That's one of my first, there was no fencing or anything here. You could just sort of walk right down into the yard, and I wanted some privacy, and I did a job for someone in Revere, and they had these similar type of arbors, and I decided that I wanted to have some on our house. So that's more or less how that came to be. There's, yeah, I made these. And there again, these were supposedly climbing roses. They only give you flowers for like about 2 weeks or maybe 10 days or something like that. But, and I always swear I'm going to cut them back. There again, there's a lot of bittersweet in here too. That doesn't have any flowers, but I like the privacy, and it almost sort of made you feel like you're almost having a doorway to your garden as opposed to just, having a thing. I kind of liked the informalness of it too, how it sort of got real big. And on the other side, you can appreciate the flowers a lot too. They really filled in nice. They get more sun, I think, on that side too. But this is very dry ground in here, so I really have it's sort of challenging. Maybe if you can come by next year. I have a fountain. I have a whole a lady pouring an urn and everything that I want to put right in here. So I have lots of ideas, just not enough time to do them. So.
Well, we'll come by next year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, definitely next year. Well, thank you very much.
Something to work towards.
It was beautiful seeing all your gardens, and we appreciate it.
What do you say? Are we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. We're standing in front of 92 Johnson Ave, the home of Richie Honan, who's one of our contestants in our Winthrop's Nicest Gardens contest. And he's going to walk around and show us a little bit of his garden.
Hi. Let's see. What we've got here is, let's see. I don't know where to start. Annuals, perennials. Let's see. Well, we've got a lot of annuals here. Pansies. Let's see. Yellow ones that are just opening up are called Evening Primrose. Scarbosa, a pincushion. We have a lot of things here actually that aren't even open in flower yet. There's Ageratum. This is Gomphrena. Phlox, summer phlox. This tall, dark maroon plant is called sedum. It hasn't come into flower yet. The tree? This is actually a tree which is a mate to this one over here, which my daughter grew from a seed. And it was actually planted by one of the owners, the house owners, previous occupants, Sylvia Plath's father. This house was owned by a poet, a very famous poet by the name of Sylvia Plath, and her father was a gardener. And he was the one who planted this tree here actually to attract butterflies. It is going to be in complete flower, completely covered with yellow flowers in another couple of weeks. And my daughter grew one from seed, and we're going to have a matching one. Let's see, what else have we got here? Oh, some orange marigolds, some blue lobelia down there, foxglove, mountain bluet, a stibble, artemisia, which is just a gray foliage plant, geum, which is a perennial, comes up every year. As a matter of fact, summer phlox is a perennial that comes up every year. This is going to flower probably another 3 weeks to a month. This is a fall flowering plant, another form of sedum, which that is. This is an interesting one. It's past flowering, but it's actually just common chives. This is chives like you'd have in a salad or cream cheese. And it actually has a very beautiful flower. Here we have more pansies. This is one of your little trees that they give you at school on Arbor Day, the little 6-inch sticks. Well, that's about 5 years old now. This is delphinium, which is yet to come in flower. This is going to be rather tall, about 3 to 4 feet. They have a real beautiful flower. There are some other delphiniums in here which are going to be pushing 7 to 8 feet. There's a lot of things in this garden that really haven't come into flower yet and won't come into flower for probably another couple of weeks. Over here, this is a little interesting one. This is a pineapple. Actually, it's not a pineapple. It's called a pineapple lily, and it grows in the shape of a pineapple, and this is going to be a flower. It's something which I haven't grown before. I was just trying something new this year. And this is an old-time flower down here called heliotrope. It's has a purple type flower. I guess they used to grow them in old gardens. Very scented. I go around and look for different things that are unusual or things that I haven't grown before. Actually, this gomprina, is what they use in dried bouquets. And then we have some basic marigolds and begonias, pansies, pansies. Most of these flowers are going to be changed over to new flowers. The pansies don't like hot weather. They're probably only going to go another week, and then we send them off to another garden in the back. And then let's see, what else do we have? Oh, yeah, back here we have, let's see, in the window box we have tuberous begonias with some, actually kind of a form of English ivy. It's a variegated, multicolored leaf. This is hosta with the large leaves just coming into flower. These are miniature gladiolas, which haven't flowered, and then back are non-stop begonias, very tall begonias, similar to the ones in the window box. And I actually have a kind of very unusual flower here. Matter of fact, this one with the 3 leaves back here is a plant called a lady slipper, and it grows wild. I don't know why it likes it here. No, there isn't one here now. But it's a wildflower, and it's actually illegal to dig them up or transplant them. They normally grow in the woods. I happen to have 2 or 3 of them that happen to be very happy here. Right here we have a large hydrangea, which is just coming. It's in bud now, and I'm actually altering a change in the color of it. It was going to grow pink last year, pinkish blue, and I'm changing it to blue by actually adding a different fertilizer called the aluminum sulfate, and it's going to be a blue one, but you can make it change to a pink hydrangea by adding lime to the soil. And let's see, this is Andromeda, has a white flower, has yet to flower. The azaleas have been passed. The rhododendrons have been passed. This is called bee balm, and this is summer flowering. It's a perennial, and it's used to attract butterflies and hummingbirds. And actually, this year we've had hummingbirds here. That's been my goal. And if we're lucky today, we'll have one show up. They're little tiny. This is a weeping cherry tree. It's already flowered. Yeah. Oh, sure.
I noticed right here you have it's built up into a mound. How do you get it to smooth?
Just by contouring it. I call this Sylvia's path. No, it's just the way I built it up. I like things that aren't flat. This is a weeping, or not weeping, but it's a little maple tree, a thread leaf Japanese maple. This is a plant called Sweet William, and actually this plant is 2 years old. It only flowers, it's a biennial, flowers every other year. And so I planted it last year, and it's just flowering. It takes on its second year. Then we have pansies. This is a balloon flower. Hens and chicks. This is the hen, the little baby chicks. Yeah, that'll spread out. It's kind of a ground cover, no flower. This is pinks or dianthus. And here we have a lot of snapdragons, patient lucies or impatiens that haven't yet come into flower. This, all I know, is kind of a slang name called lamb's ear. It's very soft. It's going to be tall, have a pink flower.
Richie, how do you go about choosing what you're going to plant?
I really, no, I don't have a plan. I actually, when I go out and look for stuff or borrow stuff from somebody's yard or buy something, I just think I'll find a little place for it. I might go to somebody's house and see something and say, that looks kind of neat. I try to think of different heights, not only colors, but I'm kind of conservative. I don't have anything too wild.
Richie has a wonderful garden in his backyard, too. We're going to take a quick tour.
Plant here with the tall one with the white flowers is digitalis, which they actually make the heart drug from. And behind this we have a trellis with clematis or clematis, which is a vine which is going to grow up. This is going to flower in the fall. It's going to be very sweet smelling. We'll actually probably fill the whole yard with the scent. This, I don't know the name of. It's going to be a tall plumes of flower about 4 feet high. Here we have Coreopsis, our perennial windflower. It likes to wave in the wind. Here we have a couple of different varieties of delphinium, tall, just coming into flower. This is something that a lot of people don't grow, but it's a, yeah, oh, grass. Yeah, just ornamental. This is actually known as just ribbon grass or ornamental grass, and it's something new that I've been just trying to fool with. Sometimes I plant things for flowers, sometimes for foliage, like the hens and chicks and the sedum. Actually, this is going to flower, but it's just a background. This is actually has a very small flower, like coral bells, very tiny, but it has a nice foliage. Remember, come down here. This is another form of sedum here, as in a ground cover. This will spread out, and there's nothing more than foliage. Euonymus, which is another foliage plant, just like the hoster is foliage, no flower. It does have a flower, I shouldn't say that. But some things I just grow for foliage, some for flowers, some for height. But here, we'll move around back.
Right, yeah. Backyard here.
Okay, what we've got here is annuals and perennials again. Over here to the right, or to your right, would be geum. And then we have some roses. I don't know much about roses. I don't know if they're hybrids or sofa. No. Go easy with the plants. But roses, these are actually some that I think I got these two down at Woodside Hardware. The other ones, I don't know where this one came from. I transplanted it from the side. But we have a lot of things here that haven't really come into flower yet. And these pots here, what's the matter? These pots here, this is a new variety of petunia, called a Supertunia. And it's a petunia that grows as a ground cover or hangs down. As a matter of fact, it's growing in the pot up there on the deck. And it will actually cling or grow over a wall, or in that case hang off of a pot. I've actually taken some pieces of it, cut them off, and stuck them in some soil in these pots to grow some more. What this is, this looks like an onion called alum, A-L-L-U-M. Someone gave it to me under the name of Egyptian onion. It's supposed to grow tall and have a big round flower, but right now it looks like an onion. Oh, we have a little sundial here. If you can get a picture of this, because yeah, we have a sundial, and actually every day Sophia and I walk down the beach, and we have the crabs here are doing a little dance. They're celebrating the first day of summer. And they're doing a little dance around the sundial, and here we have some beach glass and some more crabs. These stones and stuff that I have around the garden are actually from Winthrop Beach or from some of the old seawalls. This one was I found down in Veterans Road when they were putting the big water pipe in the ground, and it had come out of the hole, and I went down and picked it up one morning. And then, this is an interesting plant. This is called Scarvosa, and now I might be pronouncing it wrong, but it's blue flower for a hanging plant, somewhat of a new plant. I've seen it in nurseries, but it grows rather wild. It doesn't need a lot of care. And it's a funny flower because it looks like it's a petal, but it's only a half a petal, a half of a flower. But some of these things, like I have this, I can literally stick in the ground and they will root and grow. Here we have bachelor buttons, some more roses. Let's see. We have some planters over here with some pansies or not violets, violettas. Yeah. Geum. This is, I can't remember.
Yarrow?
No. I can't remember the name of it. Let's see, what else do we have here? Out of the road. And it comes in white and a lot of different pastel colors. It grows literally like a weed. And then some things that pass. This is, I can't even remember. Heather. As a matter of fact, this is a strange flower because it flowers around here from January on. As a matter of fact, these pansies back here flowered all winter, right through the winter. I had pansies, and in the end of January, pansies and primroses. But here, it's because they get the sun. Even in the snow, there were still pansies poking out of the snow. And that plant, that plant is from last year, and they've reseeded like a weed.
Pretty soft color.
And as a matter of fact, I've just put in a hummingbird feeder to bring hummingbirds in. This is a little interesting plant down here called pink splash or polka dots. And it's just a foliage type plant, but it actually looks like someone literally painted it. This is a tuberous begonia, bleeding hearts, this is, I don't know.
Is
No, but that's what it's like Fortuny. I found it at a place. It might have been HQ or someplace. But I had never seen it before. But the flower looks like a gloxinia. And some of these other ones, they're actually just house plants that I've been putting in for different foliage. Matter of fact, this is another form of begonia. And this is the little pink flower here is lobelia. This is something I picked up at a yard sale last week. It's actually a wine holder.
Is it really?
Yeah, matter of fact, a lot of these pots and stuff are from yard sales around Winthrop. Matter of fact, that's from a yard sale. I got that on Pauline Street last week. The pink pot is from Building 19. A lot of the baskets and stuff that are around are from the bargain of the day at the yard sales. And here's an interesting one for a planter. This little piece down here, let me just swing around. This is from when they were doing the credit union down next to the Liberty Market. These were they're actually like insulating bricks that they had on the wall, but they were being thrown out. And they made for a great planter, where now I've put some wire in here and I'm going to train this ivy to grow around it. Oh, and here's an interesting plant. I want you to zoom in on this plant. This plant can responds to me. Yeah. I want you to zoom in on the plant. All right. It's a little shy, so when I touch it, it's going to curl up.
Oh, look at that. What do you call that?
It's called a sensitive fern. But it'll come back, but anytime you get too close to it, but it's kind of interesting. And here's another form of polka dots, a pink splash, just a darker variety. And over here we have a calla lily, which is a bulb like a tulip, which is something new I was just trying. Matter of fact, just since you people have arrived, this flower has changed. Matter of fact, I've actually even timed how long it takes a flower to open up. Sometimes in the morning, and it probably takes, once the flower starts, about 2 hours. And you can see how they'll open. This is foxglove. And this was a chia pet back here, a chia pet head. Actually, we knocked a little hole in it, and we have some sedum, which is going to grow out onto his head. This is a plant called Jacob's Ladder. This is actually, it's already flowered, is a hardy geranium. And let's see, what else do we have here? These are pansies that were out front that have been moved around. These are miniature roses, which haven't found a home yet. Hmm? Oh, yeah. Yeah, oh, the scent that this puts. This is actually a lilac tree, or I've been told, and it was planted again by Sylvia Plath's father, who used it to attract bees and butterflies. And the scent right now, it can really be overwhelming. Actually, when the flowers start falling in another few days, it will litter the ground so it look like it has snowed out here. Yeah, originally when I moved here, I couldn't see the water at all other than from inside the house. So last year I cut the fence down so I have just enough view of the water so I can see what's going on down the yacht club. And if you notice that the weather vane up there, west and east, are on the wrong side. I don't want anybody to be confused.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Believe me, there's people out there that would notice it. That's about it.
The fireworks I
Huh? No, actually the fireworks are behind the tree. Yeah. But it's still a nice view. And let's see, lilacs and an apple tree. Let's see, I've got just a couple. I don't really grow any vegetables. I have a couple of tomato plants up here on the deck, little miniature ones. Over here we have some holly bushes. And holly bushes. Here we have some Shasta daisies, which are, and interesting thing with the holly bushes is these are 2 females. And down back over there is the boy one, who takes care of the 2 girl ones. And he's about a foot high, but he's over there. But without the boy one, we couldn't have berries on the girls. And let's see.
Beautiful. You did a great job. You spent
Thank
a lot
you.
of time out here? Hours?
Hours and hours and hours. But
It's all worth it.
yeah, I love doing it.
Well, thank you very much.
All righty.
And we wish you the best.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm standing in the front of Ken and Janelle Avery's house at 140 Woodside Ave, and she's also been nominated by someone, we're not quite sure who, as in our contest for Winthrop's Nicest Garden. So Janelle's just going to walk around and show us her garden. I had originally thought of making our garden look a little bit like OJ's garden, and I had planned to do a lot of container planting. And in early spring, I went to Northeast Nursery and priced some ornamental trees. And the planter that I was interested in was $100, and the ornamental tree was $699. So I quickly decided that I had to improvise. So I came home empty-handed, and I thought about what I had that I could make a planter out of. So I started with the wheelbarrow, which was a gift from Morton Marie Buckley in Winthrop, and I planted ivy and geraniums in that. And I used a lot of ivy this year because I can replant that in the fall and use it in other places around the house. This little wood-burning stove or gas stove, whatever it is, that was just a piece of junk that I painted green and just put a little flower on top of it. Behind that is a rose of Sharon, which should be blooming in another month or so. And all of the shrubs bloom pink. And that's a little wrought iron railing that I have 3 plants on. And this is an old wicker fernery that was in someone's trash, I think. And I painted it green and put petunias in that. And this is a mountain laurel over here, and we have gladiolas and peonies and fern, leatherleaf ferns planted around that. This is a stilby over here, and that's not blooming anymore. But most of the perennials are not in bloom yet. This little area right here, this plant in the back is sedum. I brought that from West Virginia. It was in my mother's garden. And I planted ivy and some coleus around that. And this little piece, as I said, I was looking for things that I could use for a planter. This is a little potty chair, so obviously it already had a hole in it. So I just used some fiberglass screening and some seraphim moss and made a planter out of that, painted it pink. I love your color scheme with the green and the
Thank you. Thank you. This little chair right here was belonged to a roommate that I had some 30 years ago, and she got the chair at Morgan Memorial for 50 cents. It had a broken leg, and it still has a broken leg, but now it's a planter. And I did the same thing with that. It had a leather seat, and I removed the seat and stapled in fiberglass screening and made a planter out of it. Up on the porch, that's an old high chair, and I just painted it green and put a
I'm sorry? It's a stencil that I wasn't sure whether that would work or not. This was an old high chair that had been many, many colors, and I painted it green, and on the top this is a piece of cloth that normally goes on a sweatshirt or a shirt. And I actually ironed it onto the back of the high chair and with heat and bond, and it stayed. And I painted around it and made it sort of unique looking. This is a stiffy bow. This is made, stiffy is a liquid that you put on a piece of fabric to stiffen it so the weather doesn't deteriorate it. That hall tree, my husband and I, when we first got married, went to an auction. And I loved that hall tree. It's oak. And the bidding went way beyond what we were interested in paying, and someone discovered that it had been cut into two pieces. So the bidding started over again, and we got it for $35. So that's been one of our treasures for many years. Thank you. Thank you. This light fixture was at one time in my kitchen, and I no longer liked it there, so I painted it pink and put it on the porch. My husband was lifting the floorboards on the third floor and putting in insulation, and he came across this picture. And on the back it says, I, Paul F. Howard of 2 Longbow Road, Linfield, was born in this house January 13, 1900, the son of Channing Howard and Gertrude Creech Howard. Channing Howard came to Winthrop to lay out the narrow gauge railroad. This picture was taken in 1905.
That's a great photograph.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's one of our treasures.
Yeah. Janelle has decorated her front porch quite nicely here.
Oh, thank you.
A beautiful braided rug and some nice porch furniture and a
Thank
green
you.
color scheme. Beautiful.
Thanks.
I think a lot of us remember Janelle's porch at winter, Christmas time. She did a wonderful job here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. This little area we planted 3 or 4 years ago. This is a blue holly. And we have hosta, and we've planted some fern this year, and these are 3 impatient pots on a wrought iron fixture. And that's about it, other than the little chair over here that the seat was broken, and we made a planter out of that. Planters are great in that you don't have to weed them, and you can work on them standing upright rather than bending over.
Oh, that's a great tip.
I'm Pat Sullivan, and we're here at the Dean Winthrop House with Frank Costantino, avid gardener, member of the Winthrop Beautification Committee, and also member of the Winthrop Improvement and Historical Association, and also with Doug Stinson, who's the caretaker of the Dean Winthrop House. He's going to tell us a little bit about the fountain where we are, and then Frank's going to take us around the back and show us his herb garden. Would you like
Thank you. Sure. Thank you. The water garden here, which I've put together, was donated. The concrete octagonal barrel was donated by the Tarseys, who live across the street. It was in their backyard for a number of years, and we've put it to good use here and appreciate their donation. Also, we have some comet fish in there, and also 1 Japanese koi. It is a warm day, and sometimes they're hesitant to raise to the top, but sometimes if you stick your fingers in, they'll think it's a little food and come up and nibble on your fingers occasionally. I don't know if I'll be able to tempt them today on a warm day. But we also have some floating flowers here, and I'm not exactly sure of their name, except they seem to be proliferating here, and seems to work out pretty well. It's a warm little tank in the summertime, but the fish are active nonetheless, and are a nice addition here at the Dean Winthrop House, and we might just get one to come up if we're lucky. Come on up. Well, they're shy today, and they do like these plants because they do provide some shade. But it's a nice addition to the Dean Winthrop House, and during the winter months we'll take the fish out and bring them into a fish tank and then return them come spring again. And they'll grow considerably, I'm sure. Yes, we have one light inside, so at night we do have some lighting in the tank, and also there is a bubbler, an oxygen bubbler in the tank, only because of the size of the tank. Otherwise, they wouldn't have received enough oxygen to survive in this small, the confines of this small tank here. But they seem to be relatively satisfied with the surroundings.
You might talk about the background of the Tross Trough.
Mm-hmm. Yes, at one time, according to the Tarsi family, this trough may have been located at Delby's Corner near the High Tide restaurant and was possibly a horse watering trough at one time. That's as far as we know. If there are other members or people in the town that see this video and know more about it, we'd love to hear about it, certainly, here at the Historical Association.
Some of these koi can grow to tremendous lengths. I've seen some in Japan, for instance, where they're quite popular and do habitate a number of pools around many gardens, both large and small, throughout Japan. And some of them can get to a length of 4 and 5 and 6 feet, depending on their age. They are a traditional asset to the whole concept of landscaping and gardening in Japan, for instance, where they become elements within the water world. Japanese divide their planting designs into various representations or symbols of the world, the earth, fire, mountain, and water. And they design their gardens accordingly, and the fish in the landscape of the water become important elements for their serene designs. So here we have some serenity right here in front of the Dean Winthrop House. Okay. At the moment, we're in the rear yard of the Dean Winthrop House in front of the herb garden that was installed last year. I'll explain something about the herb garden, the plot, and the plant material that we have in here, but I'd like to talk a little bit about the Dean Winthrop House. The house, which was built in 1637, has been a fixture in this community for over 350 years. A lot of people have been visiting us at our annual Strawberry Festival over the past 92 years, the most recent of which was last week, and we had a very successful turnout, including our hostess, Pat Sullivan, and Barbara Bishop, of course, from WCAT. The grounds of the Dean Winthrop House have been essentially the same, although they may have been reduced in scope over the years, but the estate as it is right now has been pretty much the way it has been found since 1637. The addition of the herb garden actually began with a donation from one of our members and her husband to establish an herb garden, hopefully to bring in the types of herbs that were indigenous and typical to the herb gardens of the early 17th century. We had, through the auspices of our president, Linda Costantino, who happens to be my spouse, contacted her eldest sister, Wisty Swenson from Hopkinton. She has designed herb gardens in the past and has given us the information that we need in order to research the plant material to decide which of the various herbs that we have here are most appropriate for our garden. The preparation took place during the late spring of last year, and we had three other members assist us in that process of turning over the soil, identifying the site, and establishing this 10 by 10 foot square plot. Paul Roy, Pat's husband, Terry Vasquez, and Jack Wood, all from the Historical Association, assisted me in doing the turning over that was necessary, edging out the garden, and planting in the rocks that you see, establishing a quadrant arrangement to the design. There are 4 corners of the garden that represent the 4 corners of the earth. In the colonial times, people were very religiously oriented, and there was a tremendous amount of symbolism that was involved in everything that they had done, whether it be in the garden or in their houses or in their decorative arts. And that was also the case in the herb garden, and the quadrant arrangement was to represent the 4 corners of the earth. And in the corners of the herb garden are planted lavender plants, aromatic lavender plants, which represent those 4 corners in the 4 square area. Before talking orientation of the garden, which a number of our members have oriented on a diagonal because we assumed that there was a pathway connecting it to the back door along the compass axis, east, west, north, and south, to the house itself. So even though it's oblique to the corner of the house, if necessary, and eventually we will install a pathway to connect it back to at the back of the house. A number of very unusual herbs, quite a number of small The clay markers were something that were application labels that we needed, but also give it time. Comes in a variety of different shapes and flowering habits and growth habits. Two examples of which you see here and also back here, which is now in blocks themselves, so that when a person walks on the stones, the thyme will release its aromatic fragrance to further accent the number of fragrances that are coming into the garden right now. A lot of the preparation that was done for the soil, by the way, put in some compactivity that's going to promote square foot plot. There's 100,000 pounds of human fertilizer in the form of care and attention and devotion taste for all of the gardens around Winthrop. The purpose of which not only is for our caretakers' use, and they've made good advantage of that both with the parsley and a number of the other plants. We had two other plants that have been taken down to the nub by the cats in the neighborhood, as well as the cat in the Dean Winthrop house. This cat for our Christmas open house later on in the season. We had very good success with the dried herbs as part of our first annual Christmas open house last year. We have here also lemon verbena, which is another aromatic plant. We have another type of sage, which is again a fragrance. There are a number of medicinal uses primarily that were planned for the herb garden, the historic herb garden in the 17th century. Purpose for medicinal reasons, but also had purposes for coloring and dyeing cloth, for instance. And also each plant was associated with a certain characteristic, a certain quality of human endeavor. Poems, for instance, gardeners may be aware of materials, and there are a number of books that are extant that explain about the symbolism of the plant material itself. Here we also have a curly chive in its habit. Here we have a pineapple sage, which has a very beautiful purple. Pulmonaria, which is the spotted leaf plant, which also has a purple type flower as well. The standard chives, as you can see by comparison with the more spiky habit, is another mainstay in the colonial garden. The rosemary, comparable to the lavender, but this also is a flavoring for certain recipes, particularly in stews. Each quadrant represented the four elements, the earth, air, fire, and water. And this plant that you see here, which is quite a delicate daisy-looking plant, is actually chamomile. And most of you that drink herb teas will understand the healing and relaxing benefits of chamomile tea. And this was used both and some of the leaves in order to create the dried material to make the teas. We have another sage, which is here. We have parsley, which you can see curly variety, and the flat variety, which Doug and Claire have cut back and is of service to them. Okay, you can see by my shadow here the catnip sign, and you can see the plants that are with this stuff. And personally, I can't see it myself, but I'm not a catnip eater. The feature is, but a mint, a small variety of mint, the palette, and the standard variety. I think done a little bit of number on them, which typically happens when plants are put in, transplanted for the first time. More vigorous state, they'll repel the insects very readily. Again, more lavender in here, another clump of chives, another variety of cultivated in back in the 1600s, and these various types of sage were derived, and I'm not sure of its history, but it's a very old plant. Again, the pulmonaria again, some curly chive, which you see here. We also have some witchgrass, a larger clump of which was beginning to take over the herb garden last year, and we found it necessary to transplant that to some other locations. Our caretaker has also put in on the back corner, that being the north side of the herb garden, the sunflowers, which he planted from seed. He's unsure as to whether they're the mammoth variety or which will reach smaller stature. We also have a very unusual herb garden called the woolly lamb. They're so named. They have a rather woolly texture when they're not quite as wet, since the garden was just recently watered. But nonetheless, they add another bluish green coloration of the rest of the herb garden. And the large You begin to see some of the flowering that has already taken place, and or actually it's the budding that has given way, and then we'll have some larger flowers. For those of you that are familiar with the allium, the decorative allium, will know what to expect with a large starburst habit of the flowers of the onion plant. Again, we have another sage plant, which is a larger leafed variety. And here we have in this large plant French tarragon, which is probably imported from France. I'm not sure of the origins of the plants nonetheless, but tarragon is also another cooking element that may have been used for stews and what have you. The stones themselves that you see defining this lead into the center of the herb garden, and in the center is a natural woven bee skip, which is the cover for a beehive. Typically a beehive and a bee skip were included in an herb garden to encourage the bees to take up residence there during the summer and to make sure that the plants were properly pollinated and they grew to their proper growth and succulent growth as well. The tallest plant in the garden is the heliotrope, which is a very delicate blossomed and leafed plant. I'm not quite sure of the medicinal purposes for the heliotrope itself, but suffice to say that it is also one of the most aromatic of the garden plants. The heliotrope, because of its size, was a deterrent, I think, for, or an attractant probably for the bees to, in fact there's one on there right now, for the bees to come into the garden and then I guess work their way down to a lower level. We're hoping that the herb garden will provide us with a goodly crop for drying and for selling at our Christmas open house, and we hope that if there are any members both in the community and also members of the Dean Winthrop Historical Association that have some interest in plants and would like to donate some of their time in order to improve the grounds around the house, we could always use the help, and we hope everyone has some very good success with their gardens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. That was very entertaining, educational, informative, and it was a pleasure.
This is just an addition to the Dean Winthrop Yard that I've put up in the last year. It's a scale model of a private school in Lymington, Maine called Lymington Academy. And it's a birdhouse that was built around, I'd say 1900, 1915, somewhere in that time frame, and came from a home up in Kittery Point, Maine. And it's just a nice addition. We're hoping that purple martins may decide to nest in this home. We've seen a few starlings come by and look in the windows and decide against it. But the closest nesting area of purple martins, we understand through the Audubon Society, is up in Plum Island. So we've got a ways to go, but hopefully they'll travel down, and word will get around about the Lymington Academy condominiums projects we have here, which could really be another nice addition if we get some birds in here and keep the mosquito population down to a minimum, hopefully, as well. So just one more thing here at the Dean Winthrop House in the Historical Association's grounds.
Also here with Doug, this is Frank Costantino again, and under my hat for the Beautification Committee. I'd like to mention, just as an aside, that the idea of a birdhouse is something that the Beautification Committee had originally thought of as one added feature to the plans down at French Square, which we had started back in 1985. If there are any of the CAT viewers with historic or gardening interests that'd be willing to contact yours truly relative to their interest for a birdhouse that we might install down at French Square, or know of people that are able to make these, or perhaps as inveterate yard sailors, as the term goes, happen to come across a birdhouse of some merit, I'd be very interested in hearing from you, and hopefully others have the same interest as well.